A spoiled heir to a real estate fortune reluctantly begins community service at a struggling neighborhood center, only to discover the woman in charge is immune to his wealth, his charm, and his excuses. Their clashing worlds ignite an unexpected connection that could heal his entitled heart, if he can first prove he's worthy of her trust. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The heavy glass doors of Westbridge Community Center groaned as Alex Blackwood pushed them open, his designer shoes squeaking against the worn linoleum floor. The scent of industrial cleaner mixed with something cooking. Probably the free lunch program his father had mentioned with thinly veiled contempt. At 32, Alex was being punished like a teenager, forced into community service at this dilapidated building in a neighborhood he'd normally drive through with locked doors. 90 days, he muttered, checking his watch. A limited edition Patek Philippe worth more than most cars. Just 90 days of this nonsense. His father's words from yesterday still rang in his ears. This is your last chance, Alexander. 3 months of actual work at the community center, or I cut you off completely. Harrison Blackwood, billionaire developer and patriarch of the Blackwood Empire, had finally reached his limit after Alex's latest scandal, crashing his Ferrari into the fountain of a rival developer's headquarters after a night of heavy drinking. The headline, "Blackwood heir makes splash at competitor's expense," hadn't amused his father. Neither had the 6-figure repair bill or the potential lawsuit. And so here he was, sentenced to community service that his father's lawyers had arranged, instead of actual jail time. The fact that Blackwood Developments owned the building and had been threatening to redevelop it into luxury condos added an extra layer of irony that wasn't lost on Alex. He'd deliberately arrived late, hoping to make a statement about how seriously he was taking this farce. The community center seemed quiet, almost abandoned. Maybe he could just sign some papers and disappear until tomorrow. "You must be Alexander Blackwood." The voice behind him was cool, professional, and unmistakably unimpressed. Alex turned, a practiced smile already forming, the one that had charmed countless women at charity galas and exclusive clubs. The smile faltered when he saw her. She wasn't what he expected. No dowdy social worker or burned-out administrator. The woman standing before him was about his age, with warm brown skin and natural hair pulled back in a practical style that somehow enhanced rather than diminished her beauty. She wore simple jeans and a forest green top with the center's logo. No designer labels, no statement jewelry, yet she carried herself with a kind of confidence that couldn't be bought. "Alex," he corrected automatically, extending his hand. "And you are?" "Maya Johnson, director of Westbridge Community Center." Her handshake was firm, businesslike. Her eyes, a striking amber, assessed him without a hint of the usual flirtation or recognition his presence typically inspired. "You're 45 minutes late on your first day." "Traffic," he lied smoothly. "From your penthouse in Riverdale Heights, that's 15 minutes away without traffic. I know because I checked." She consulted a tablet she was carrying. "Your father's assistant was very specific about your schedule, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Weekends as needed for special events." "Weekends?" Alex hadn't bothered to read the full agreement. His lawyer had assured him it would be a cakewalk. "Show up, look pretty for the cameras, maybe write some checks." "Is that a problem?" Maya asked, one eyebrow raised. "Because I can call Mr. Harrison right now if you'd prefer to discuss alternative arrangements with him." The casual use of his father's first name caught Alex off guard. Most people spoke of Harrison Blackwood with reverence or fear. "No problem at all," he said, shoving his hands into the pockets of his tailored slacks. "Just clarifying expectations." "Good. Then let's clarify a few more. You're not here for a photo op or to polish your tarnished reputation. You're here to work, real work, the kind that might mess up that." She gestured vaguely at his entire appearance. "Whatever this is." Alex felt his face warm. He'd actually dressed down for the occasion. Only a cashmere sweater and Italian loafers instead of his usual bespoke suits. "I understand I'm here to provide financial expertise," he said stiffly. "Set up spreadsheets, review budgets, that sort of thing." Maya's laugh was genuine but brief. "Is that what they told you? We need every pair of hands we can get." Today you'll be helping renovate our children's reading room. Paint, furniture assembly, the works. I'm not dressed for manual labor. Then you should have read the orientation packet, or asked questions, or shown any interest whatsoever in what community service actually entails. She checked her watch, a simple affair with a worn leather band. You've now wasted 50 minutes of your first day. The supply closet has coveralls that should fit over your, again that vague gesture, ensemble. Before Alex could respond, a teenage boy burst through the front doors out of breath. Ms. J, the delivery truck is here with all the furniture, but they say they can't stay to help bring it in. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I'll be right there, Dion. She turned back to Alex. Supply closet, second door on the left. Coveralls. Then meet us at the loading dock. With that, she strode away, leaving Alex standing alone in the entryway. For a moment, he considered walking out, calling his father's bluff. But something in Maya Johnson's dismissive assessment had triggered a response he wasn't accustomed to feeling, the need to prove her wrong. Grumbling, he found the supply closet and a pair of faded blue coveralls that had seen better days. They smelled faintly of paint and industrial detergent. Grimacing, he pulled them on over his expensive clothes and followed the sound of voices to the loading dock. Maya was efficiently directing a small team of volunteers, mostly teenagers and a couple of elderly men, as they unloaded boxes from a delivery truck. Ah, Mr. Blackwood. Just in time. She pointed to a stack of large, flat-packed boxes. Those bookshelves need to go to the reading room. First floor, east wing. Alex stared at the boxes. They had to weigh at least 50 pounds each. Is there a dolly or something? One of the elderly men snorted. A teenager smirked. We have exactly one dolly, and it's currently being used to move the heavier tables. Maya explained patiently. You have two arms that appear to be in working order. One box at a time, if necessary. Swallowing his protest, Alex awkwardly hoisted a box. It was heavier than he expected, and he nearly dropped it before finding his balance. First floor, east wing, Maya repeated, already turning her attention back to organizing the rest of the delivery. By the time Alex had carried the third box to the reading room, his arms were burning and his designer shirt was soaked with sweat beneath the coveralls. The room itself was a sad affair. Institutional beige walls, scuffed flooring, and a few worn tables. A group of volunteers were already priming the walls for painting. You can put those against that wall, instructed an older woman with silver-streaked hair. I'm Elaine, by the way. Volunteer coordinator. Alex nodded, too winded to introduce himself. You must be the Blackwood boy, Elaine continued, sizing him up with shrewd eyes. Maya mentioned you'd be joining us. Did she mention I'd be used as manual labor? Alex asked, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. Elaine smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. Everyone starts somewhere. Even billionaires' sons. She handed him a paint roller. We're doing the base coat today, light blue. Maya wants this room finished by the end of the week for the children's reading program launch. 4 hours later, Alex's back ached. His hands were speckled with paint, despite the gloves he'd been given, and his pride was thoroughly wounded. He'd never done physical labor before, and it showed. The teenagers, mostly from the center's youth program, worked circles around him, laughing and joking as they transformed the room with surprising efficiency. When lunchtime was announced, Alex followed the group to the center's cafeteria, where a simple meal of sandwiches, fruit, and drinks had been laid out. He hung back, uncomfortable and out of place among people who clearly knew each other well. Not what you expected. Maya appeared beside him, holding 2 bottles of water. She offered him one. Alex accepted it gratefully, suddenly aware of how thirsty he was. Not exactly. Your father's company has owned this building for 15 years, she said, her tone neutral. Did you know that? Quote, vaguely. The truth was, Alex knew almost nothing about his father's vast holdings. He showed up to board meetings when required, voted as directed, and collected his trust fund disbursements without much thought to where the money came from. This center serves over 200 people daily. After-school programs, senior activities, job training, food assistance. Maya looked around the simple cafeteria where volunteers and staff were eating together. When your father announced plans to redevelop this property into luxury condos last year, we nearly had to close. Alex shifted uncomfortably. I wasn't involved in that decision. But you benefit from it, she said simply. Every dollar in your trust fund comes from somewhere, Mr. Blackwood. Alex, he corrected again, irritated by her formality. Alex, she conceded. The point is, this isn't just punishment. It's an opportunity to understand what your family's business actually means to real people. My father sent me here because he's trying to teach me a lesson, Alex said bluntly, not because he cares about this place. Maya's expression softened slightly. Maybe. Or maybe he's trying to show you something important before it's too late. She checked her watch. Lunch break's over in 10 minutes. The painting supplies need to be cleaned and stored properly before you go. She walked away before he could respond, leaving Alex with the unsettling feeling that he'd somehow disappointed her, a woman he'd just met and shouldn't care about impressing. The afternoon dragged on interminably. By 5 o'clock, Alex was exhausted in a way he'd never experienced before. His usual fatigue came from late nights and excess, not honest work. The reading room was half-painted, the furniture still in boxes, but Maya seemed pleased with the progress as she did a final inspection. Not bad for day one, she said to the group. Tomorrow, we finish painting and start assembling the bookshelves. As the volunteers dispersed, Alex peeled off the paint-splattered coveralls and winced at the state of his clothes underneath. His cashmere sweater was ruined, damp with sweat, and speckled with paint that had seeped through. You'll want to wear something more practical tomorrow, Maya advised, noticing his dismay. Jeans, t-shirt, clothes you don't mind getting dirty. Alex nodded, too tired to even muster a sarcastic reply. He pulled out his phone to call his driver, only to find it dead. He'd forgotten to charge it last night after drinks with friends. Need a ride? Maya asked, observing his predicament. I can call a car, he said, though he wasn't entirely sure how without his phone. The center has a landline in the office, she offered. Or the bus stop is just outside. The 67 will take you downtown. The thought of taking a bus, something he hadn't done since college, and even then rarely, was almost too much to bear after the day he'd had. The landline would be great, thanks. Maya led him to a small office cluttered with files, children's artwork, and a surprisingly modern computer. A worn couch occupied one wall and a desk piled with paperwork dominated the space. She gestured to an ancient-looking phone. Help yourself. I need to lock up the supply closet. Left alone, Alex dialed his driver's number from memory, arranging to be picked up in 15 minutes. As he waited for Maya to return, he found himself studying the photos on her desk. Maya with groups of children, elderly folks, teenagers. In every image, her smile was genuine, her presence dynamic. One photo caught his attention, a younger Maya standing beside an older man in front of the community center. They had the same eyes, the same warm smile. My father, Maya said, returning to find him looking at the photograph. He ran this place for 20 years before he passed away. I'm sorry, Alex said, and meant it. It's been 3 years. She picked up the frame, a gentle smile touching her lips. He believed that everyone deserves a chance to be more than their circumstances, good or bad. Something in her words struck Alex uncomfortably close to home. Your driver here yet? She asked, setting the photo down. Should be outside in a few minutes. Maya nodded, gathering her things. A worn leather bag, a jacket, the tablet she'd carried all day. Same time tomorrow, Mr. Blackwood. 9 a.m., not 9:45. It's Alex, he said, for the third time that day, and I'll be on time. A small smile played at the corner of her mouth. We'll see. Outside, the evening air was cool against Alex's flushed face. His luxury SUV pulled up, drawing curious glances from a group of teenagers leaving the center. As his driver opened the door, Alex caught sight of Maya exiting the building, securing the doors behind her. She didn't look his way as she walked to an older model sedan parked in the staff section. "Rough day, sir?" his driver asked, noting Alex's disheveled appearance. "You have no idea, James." Alex sank into the leather seat, wincing as his sore muscles protested. "Take me home." As they pulled away, Alex found himself watching Maya's car through the rear window until it disappeared from view. His penthouse felt emptier than usual that night. After a long shower that washed away the physical evidence of his day but did nothing for the lingering discomfort in his mind, Alex poured himself a generous whiskey and stepped out onto his balcony. The city spread before him, lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there was Westbridge, the neighborhood he'd barely thought about before today. His phone, now charged, buzzed with messages from friends inviting him to the usual clubs and parties. For the first time in recent memory, Alex declined. Instead, he found himself opening his browser and searching for information about Westbridge Community Center. The website was basic but functional, detailing programs that served everyone from children to seniors. There was a photo of Maya on the staff page, professional, warm, committed. He scrolled through the upcoming events, pausing at the announcement for the grand reopening of the children's reading room scheduled for the end of the month. Another message pinged, his father this time. How was day one? Alex stared at the screen, composing and deleting several responses before settling on the truth. Harder than I expected. The reply came almost immediately. Most worthwhile things are. Alex set his phone down, unexpectedly affected by his father's words. Harrison Blackwood wasn't known for sentimentality or patience. Their relationship had been strained for years, deteriorating further as Alex's behavior became increasingly reckless. Turning back to his laptop, Alex clicked through to the center's donation page. The funding goal for the reading room renovations was modest by his standards, $15,000 for new books, furniture, and technology. He could cover that with less than a day's interest from his trust fund. His finger hovered over the donate button before he stopped himself. For some reason, the thought of Maya discovering a large anonymous donation felt wrong, like he was trying to buy his way out of actual work. For once in his life, money didn't seem like the answer. Closing his laptop, Alex finished his whiskey and made a mental note to stop at a department store on his way to the center tomorrow. He needed appropriate clothes if he was going to be painting and assembling furniture. Morning came too soon. Alex's body protested as he dragged himself out of bed, muscles aching in places he didn't know could ache. He dressed in newly purchased jeans and a plain t-shirt, feeling strangely self-conscious about the designer labels still attached. After hastily removing them, he added a light jacket and the most casual shoes he owned, still Italian leather, but at least not obviously expensive. James expressed surprise when Alex requested to be dropped off at the community center at 8:30, a full 30 minutes early. The surprise deepened when Alex instructed him not to wait. "I'll find my own way home today," Alex said, ignoring his driver's concerned expression. The center was already bustling when he arrived. A group of elderly people were gathering for what looked like a morning exercise class in one room, while staff prepared for the day's programs in others. Maya was in the reading room, reviewing paint supplies with Elaine. Her double take when she spotted Alex was worth the early wake-up. "You're early," she said, making no effort to hide her surprise. "I'm capable of following instructions," Alex replied, trying for a light tone. "We'll see about that." But there was a hint of approval in her voice that shouldn't have pleased him as much as it did. "We're finishing the walls today and starting assembly. You can work with Dion on the north wall." The day passed more quickly than the first. Alex found an unexpected rhythm in the physical work, and even engaged in cautious conversation with some of the volunteers. Dion, the teenager from yesterday, was a high school senior with plans to study engineering, if he could secure enough scholarship money. "Ms. J's helping me with applications," he explained as they worked. "She says I got a real shot at State University's program." "That's a good school," Alex commented, thinking of his own college experience. A blur of parties and minimal effort at an Ivy League university his family had attended for generations. "You go there?" Dion asked. "No, but I have friends who did." It was a stretch. Most of Alex's friends had followed similar privileged paths to his own. "The engineering program has a strong reputation." Dion nodded, a flash of uncertainty crossing his face. Tuition steep, though, even with scholarships. Alex thought of his own education, paid for without a second thought, squandered without appreciation. There are always options, he offered lamely, aware of how hollow the words sounded. At lunch, Alex found himself sitting with Maya, who was reviewing grant applications between bites of her sandwich. "Do you ever take a break?" he asked. She looked up, seemingly surprised to find him across from her. "Not really. Non-profit work isn't exactly 9 to 5. How long have you been running this place?" "Since my father died. 3 years officially, but I grew up here. This center was his life's work." She set her papers aside. "What about you? What do you actually do at Blackwood Developments?" The question caught Alex off guard. "I'm on the board," he said vaguely. "That's a position, not a job," Maya pointed out. "What do you contribute?" No one had ever asked him that question so directly. "I attend meetings, vote on proposals." The answer sounded pathetic even to his own ears. Maya studied him, her expression thoughtful rather than judgmental. "With your education and resources, you could be doing so much more." "My father doesn't exactly welcome my input," Alex admitted. "He prefers I stay out of the way unless he needs my signature." "Have you ever tried to change that dynamic?" Again, the directness of her question disarmed him. "Not really," he conceded. "It's easier to just go along." Easier doesn't mean better. Maya gathered her papers. "For what it's worth, I think there's more to you than you let people see, Alex Blackwood." The words stayed with him all afternoon as they finished painting and began assembling bookshelves. By the end of the day, the room was transformed, cheerful blue walls, new furniture taking shape, the promise of what it could become starting to materialize. As volunteers began to leave, Alex found himself lingering, helping with final cleanup rather than rushing out as he had the day before. "You didn't have to stay," Maya said, finding him organizing paint supplies in the closet. "Seems like the least I could do after slacking most of my life," he replied, surprising himself with the honesty. A genuine smile brightened her face, the first he'd seen directed at him. "Well, thank you. It helps." They walked out together, the spring evening pleasantly cool. "No chauffeur today?" Maya asked, noticing him looking around the parking lot. "I thought I'd take the bus," Alex said, the decision crystallizing only as he spoke the words. Maya's eyebrows rose. "Really?" "Part of the authentic community service experience," he said with a self-deprecating smile. "Unless you'd like to educate me on the public transportation system." She hesitated, then nodded toward her car. "I can give you a ride. Where do you live?" "Riverdale Heights. That's on my way," she said, though Alex suspected it wasn't. "Come on." Maya's car was neat but well used, with a stack of books on the back seat and a small photo of her father hanging from the rearview mirror. It smelled faintly of vanilla and coffee. "Sorry for the mess," she said, moving a folder from the passenger seat to make room for him. "This isn't mess," Alex assured her, thinking of the chaos of his own luxury vehicles after a weekend with friends. As they drove, Maya pointed out landmarks. A community garden the center had helped establish, a small business incubator for neighborhood entrepreneurs, a playground they'd renovated last year with grant money. "You really love this place," Alex observed. "Westbridge isn't just where I work. It's home." She navigated through evening traffic with practiced ease. "These people are family." "I've never felt that way about anywhere," Alex admitted. "Or anyone really, except maybe my mother before she died." The words slipped out unplanned. He rarely spoke of his mother, who had passed away when he was 15, the last person who had truly known and accepted him. Maya glanced at him, surprise and something like understanding in her expression. "I'm sorry. Losing a parent changes you. My father and I were never close, but after Mom died." Alex shrugged. It was easier to be what he expected, the irresponsible heir, than to try and fail at earning his respect. "So you became exactly what he feared," Maya said softly. The insight was uncomfortable in its accuracy. Before Alex could respond, they arrived at his building, a gleaming high-rise of glass and steel that stood in stark contrast to the neighborhoods they'd just driven through. "Thanks for the ride," Alex said, suddenly, reluctant to leave the comfortable space they'd created. "See you tomorrow?" There was a question in Maya's voice, as if she wasn't entirely convinced he'd return. 9 a.m. sharp, he promised. Though, fair warning, I'm useless with power tools. She laughed, a warm sound that he immediately wanted to hear again. We'll find something you're good at eventually. As her car pulled away, Alex stood for a moment looking at his building with new eyes. For the first time, he saw it as Maya might, a monument to wealth and privilege in a city where places like Westbridge struggled for basic resources. Inside his penthouse, instead of heading straight for the bar as he usually did, Alex sat at his rarely used desk and opened his laptop. He spent the next 3 hours researching Blackwood developments, holdings in neighborhoods like Westbridge, discovering patterns he'd never bothered to notice before. His father's company had a history of acquiring properties in struggling areas, holding them until neighborhood improvement initiatives raised values, then redeveloping into upscale housing that original residents couldn't afford. The Westbridge Community Center was just one of many such properties across the city. The revelation left Alex feeling hollow. He'd spent his life enjoying the fruits of this business model without ever questioning its impact. His phone buzzed with his father's nightly check-in. Day 2? Alex stared at the message, thinking of Maya's passionate defense of her community, of Dion's uncertainty about college despite his obvious potential, of the center that served hundreds of people his father's company would displace without a second thought. I'm beginning to understand, he typed back. His father's response was immediate and unexpected. That's a start. Over the next 2 weeks, Alex found himself settling into an unexpected routine. He arrived at the community center each morning before 9, worked alongside volunteers and staff until 5, and often stayed later to help with additional projects. The physical labor still exhausted him, but he'd begun to find satisfaction in the tangible results. Walls painted, shelves assembled, order created from chaos. More surprising was how much he looked forward to seeing Maya each day. Their conversations had evolved from terse instructions to genuine exchanges about the center, the neighborhood, and, occasionally, themselves. He found himself sharing thoughts he'd never vocalized, and listening, really listening, to her perspective on issues he'd previously dismissed. "The reading room looks incredible," Maya said one afternoon as they stood in the doorway, surveying their work. The transformation was remarkable. Cheerful blue walls adorned with book-themed murals painted by local artists, new bookshelves filled with donations, comfortable seating arranged in cozy reading nooks, and a small stage for story time. "It's actually better than I imagined," Alex admitted, "though I still think we should have gone with the higher quality furniture." Maya shook her head, a familiar argument. That would have blown the entire budget on just furnishings. This way, we could afford new books, and the digital station too. Alex had offered to personally cover the difference for premium furniture, but Maya had refused. "This center runs on grants and donations that have to be accounted for properly," she'd explained. "Not on backdoor funding that could disappear as quickly as it appears." The comment had stung, but Alex understood her point. His commitment was temporary. Her responsibility was long-term. "The opening ceremony is Friday," Maya reminded him. "We're expecting about 50 kids and their families, plus some potential donors. You'll be here, right?" "Of course," Alex replied without hesitation. "Unless you'd prefer the infamous Blackwood heir stay out of sight." "Actually, I'd like you to say a few words," Maya said, surprising him. "About the project, what it means for the kids. You've put in the work. You should share in the recognition." Alex felt a warmth spread through his chest at her words. Recognition from Maya had come to mean more than he cared to admit. "I'd be honored," he said simply. As they left the reading room, Elaine approached with a concerned expression. "Maya, we have a situation with the Johnson application. The bank is requiring additional documentation we don't have." Alex recognized the name, a young mother of 3 who had applied for the center's housing assistance program. The family was facing eviction after the father had been injured on a construction job. Maya's expression fell. "That's the 3rd application they've complicated this month. At this rate, we won't be able to help half the families who qualify." "What's the issue?" Alex asked, surprising himself with his interest. Maya hesitated, then explained. "Our housing assistance program helps families secure stable housing through rent subsidies and security deposit assistance. But the application process is becoming increasingly difficult because banks and property management companies keep changing their requirements." "Can I take a look?" Alex asked. "I might have some insight." Maya led him to her cluttered office where she pulled up the application on her computer. Alex read through it carefully, immediately spotting several issues that would raise red flags with financial institutions. The problem is structural, he explained. The way these applications are formatted doesn't align with how banks assess risk. You're emphasizing need, which matters to you, but they're looking for stability markers. These families need housing regardless of what banks consider stable, Maya said, frustration evident in her voice. I agree, Alex said quickly, but if you want to work within the system, you need to speak their language. He pointed to specific sections of the application. Let me help restructure this. I know how these institutions think. Maya studied him for a moment, then nodded. Okay. Show me. For the next 3 hours, they worked side by side, redesigning the application process to emphasize factors banks would respond to positively while still maintaining the program's integrity. Alex found himself drawing on knowledge from business school he'd barely used since graduating: financial regulations, risk assessment protocols, alternative qualification metrics. This is actually really good, Maya admitted as they finished. Where did you learn all this? Wharton, Alex said with a self-deprecating smile. Turns out I was paying attention occasionally between parties. You never mentioned you had a finance degree. MBA, actually, Alex shrugged. It never seemed relevant to painting walls. Maya gave him a look he couldn't quite interpret. There's a lot more to you than you let on, Alex Blackwood. The next day, Alex arrived with coffee from Maya, having noticed she always brought her own in a thermos, never spending money on the expensive cafe brews he took for granted. What's this for? She asked, accepting the cup with surprise. Just a thank you, he said, for giving me a chance to help with something I might actually be qualified for. Maya smiled, warming her hands around the cup. The housing application revisions are already making a difference. We submitted 3 yesterday that would have been rejected under the old format. That's great, Alex said, genuinely pleased. If you have other financial paperwork that needs a second look, I'd be happy to help. Careful what you offer, Maya warned. Non-profit administration is about 90% paperwork. Bring it on, Alex challenged. I'm finding I prefer paperwork to paint fumes. Over the next few days, Alex split his time between finishing preparations for the reading room opening and helping Maya with grant applications, budget projections, and program funding analyses. He was surprised to discover he had a talent for translating the center's needs into language that would appeal to corporate donors and grant committees. You speak rich people, Maya teased one evening as they worked late in her office. Fluently, Alex agreed, complete with all the pretentious dialects. It's a useful skill, she admitted. One I've never mastered. That's because you're authentic, Alex said. You talk about what matters, not what sounds impressive. Maya looked up from her computer, her expression softening. That might be the nicest thing anyone said about my grant writing. Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary, and Alex felt something shift between them. A recognition of mutual respect that hadn't existed when they'd met. The moment was broken by Alex's phone buzzing with a text from his father. Meeting tomorrow, 2 p.m. Your attendance required. Alex frowned. He hadn't been to the Blackwood offices in weeks, not since starting at the center. Problem? Maya asked, noticing his expression. My father wants me at a board meeting tomorrow. He hesitated. I'll have to miss the afternoon prep for the reading room opening. That's okay, Maya assured him. Family obligations come first. Alex wanted to explain that in his family, obligations rarely came with warm feelings attached, but he simply nodded. I'll be back as soon as it's over. The next day, Alex felt strangely out of place as he entered Blackwood Tower in his designer suit and tie. After weeks of jeans and t-shirts at the center, the formal attire felt like a costume. Employees he'd known for years gave him double takes as he passed, unused to seeing him during business hours, much less looking sober and alert. His father's executive assistant greeted him with poorly concealed surprise. Alexander, you're early. The board isn't meeting for another 20 minutes. I'll wait in my office, Alex replied, heading down the hallway. His office, a corner space he'd used perhaps a dozen times in the past year, was immaculate and impersonal. No photos, no personal touches, nothing to indicate the occupant's personality or interests. Just expensive furniture and generic corporate art. Alex sat at his desk, opening his laptop to review the meeting agenda his father's assistant had emailed. His stomach tightened as he read the third item: Westbridge Development Project, Timeline Update. Before he could process this information, his father appeared in the doorway. Harrison Blackwood was an imposing figure. Tall, lean, with silver hair and penetrating eyes that missed nothing. He carried authority like a tangible force field. "You're early," Harrison observed, the faintest hint of approval in his voice. "Wanted to review the agenda," Alex replied, trying to keep his tone neutral. "I see Westbridge is on the docket." Harrison entered the office, closing the door behind him. "Yes, the development committee is recommending we accelerate the timeline. Market conditions are favorable." Alex felt a chill. "Accelerate? The community center lease doesn't expire for another 8 months. 9, actually," Harrison corrected. "But the committee believes we should begin the rezoning process now. It can take months to navigate the bureaucracy." "And what happens to the center?" Alex asked, already knowing the answer. Harrison's expression was impassive. "The standard relocation package. 3 months, notice. Assistance finding alternative space. Nothing out of the ordinary." "Nothing out of the ordinary," Alex repeated, a bitter taste in his mouth. "Just displacing programs that serve hundreds of people daily." Harrison studied his son with new interest. "You've become quite the advocate. I'm impressed." "Don't be," Alex said, standing. "I'm just stating facts. That center is vital to Westbridge. The reading program alone serves 50 children who have no other access to books or educational support." "Noble concerns," Harrison acknowledged. "But sentiment doesn't drive business decisions. The development will bring jobs, increase property values." "For who?" Alex interrupted. "Not for the current residents who'll be priced out. Not for the seniors who rely on the center's programs. Not for kids like Dion who need safe spaces to study and grow." Harrison's eyebrows rose at his son's vehemence. "Alexander, I appreciate your newfound social conscience. But Blackwood Developments is not a charity. We have shareholders, responsibilities." "I'm a shareholder," Alex countered. "One of the largest, thanks to Mom's trust. And I'm telling you, this development needs reconsideration." A tense silence fell between them. Harrison's expression was unreadable as he assessed his son. "Come to the meeting," he said finally. "Make your case to the board if you feel so strongly." Alex did exactly that. For the first time in his life, he came to a board meeting prepared to do more than occupy a chair. He spoke passionately about the center's impact, presented alternative development scenarios that would preserve the community services while still delivering shareholder value, and challenged the board to consider the long-term reputational benefits of responsible community investment. The board members, most of whom had known Alex since childhood, were visibly startled by his articulate, well-reasoned presentation. Several asked thoughtful questions. A few seemed genuinely moved by his descriptions of the center's programs. His father remained silent throughout, watching with an expression Alex couldn't interpret. When the discussion concluded, Harrison simply said, "The board will take these considerations under advisement. We'll revisit the timeline at next month's meeting." It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't a defeat either. As the meeting adjourned, several board members approached Alex with newfound respect in their eyes. "Impressive presentation," commented Eleanor Winters, his father's oldest friend on the board. "Your mother would have been proud." The comment caught Alex off guard. His mother had been the compassionate balance to his father's ruthless business sense, a dynamic he'd forgotten until recently. Harrison waited until they were alone before speaking. "That was unexpected." Alex steeled himself for criticism. "I meant every word." "I know you did." Harrison adjusted his tie, a habitual gesture when he was thinking. "Your approach was emotional but backed by sound business logic. The alternative development plan has merit." Alex stared at his father, unsure if he was being mocked. "The community benefit corporation structure is particularly interesting," Harrison continued. "I'd like to see a more detailed proposal." "You're serious?" Alex couldn't hide his surprise. "I've always been serious about business, Alexander, and about your potential." Harrison picked up his briefcase. "You've spent 3 weeks at that center, and somehow managed to develop more insight into its value than my development team has in years. That's worth considering." Before Alex could respond, Harrison headed for the door. Don't look so shocked. I didn't send you there just as punishment, you know. Alex returned to the community center that evening to find Maya and several volunteers putting final touches on the reading room for tomorrow's opening. "How was the meeting?" Maya asked, noticing his distracted expression. "Interesting," Alex replied honestly. "I think I may have convinced the board to reconsider the Westbridge development timeline." Maya's eyes widened. "Seriously? Wow. Thank you for trying." "Don't thank me yet," Alex cautioned. "Corporate inertia is powerful, but it's a start." They worked side by side, arranging books and setting up decorations for the opening ceremony. As the volunteers gradually departed, Alex found himself alone with Maya. "Want to grab dinner?" he asked impulsively. "There's a decent pizza place around the corner." Maya hesitated, then nodded. "Sure, I'm starving, and my refrigerator is a barren wasteland." The restaurant was a small, family-owned establishment with checkered tablecloths and the rich aroma of garlic and tomato sauce. Nothing like the high-end restaurants Alex typically frequented, but somehow more inviting. "I come here at least once a week," Maya admitted as they settled into a corner booth. "The owner's son went through our youth program. Now he's at culinary school." "Another success story," Alex commented, genuinely impressed by how the center's influence rippled through the community. "One of many," Maya agreed. "That's what I wish your father could understand. The value of what happens at the center can't be measured in property values or quarterly returns." "I'm trying to help him see that," Alex said. "Today was the first time I've ever really challenged him or the board. It felt right." Maya studied him across the table, her expression thoughtful. "You've changed since that first day you showed up." "For the better, I hope. Definitely for the better." She smiled. "Though I'll admit, I had serious doubts in those first few days." Alex laughed. "I was pretty unbearable, wasn't I? Let's just say your learning curve was steep." Maya's eyes danced with amusement. "But you climbed it faster than I expected." Their conversation flowed easily through dinner, moving from center business to personal stories. Alex found himself sharing memories of his mother he rarely discussed. Her passion for education, her insistence that privilege came with responsibility. "She sounds like she was an amazing woman," Maya said softly. "She was. After she died, I think I deliberately became everything my father disapproved of. It was easier than trying to live up to her example." Alex traced the rim of his water glass, surprised by his own candor. "Being at the center, it's the first time I've felt connected to the person she wanted me to be." Maya reached across the table, briefly touching his hand. "I think she'd be proud of who you're becoming." The simple gesture and sincere words affected Alex more deeply than he could express. For a moment neither spoke, the connection between them strengthening in the silence. As they walked back to the center where their cars were parked, Alex found himself reluctant for the evening to end. Maya seemed to share the feeling, their pace slowing as they approached the building. "Big day tomorrow," she said, stopping beside her car. "Nervous about your speech?" "Terrified," Alex admitted with a smile. "Public speaking was never my strong suit." "You'll be great," Maya assured him. "Just speak from the heart. That's what these kids and families respond to, authenticity." "I'll try to channel my inner Maya Johnson," he teased. She laughed, the sound warming the cool evening air. "God help us all." There was a moment, brief but electric, when Alex thought about kissing her. Something in her eyes suggested she might not object. But the moment passed as a car drove by, its headlights sweeping across them. "Good night, Alex," Maya said, her voice softer than usual. "Good night, Maya." The reading room opening exceeded all expectations. Children and families filled the space, their excitement palpable as they explored the new books, comfortable seating, and interactive learning stations. Local media covered the event, interviewing Maya about the center's programs and the importance of literacy in underserved communities. When it came time for Alex's speech, he found himself unexpectedly nervous. These weren't corporate executives or society friends. These were people whose lives were genuinely impacted by the center, who had no reason to pretend interest in what a wealthy outsider had to say. Maya introduced him with surprising warmth. "The person who made this renovation possible through countless hours of hard work, and yes, some paint-splattered designer clothes, Alex Blackwood. The crowd's applause was polite but reserved as Alex approached the small podium. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, setting aside the notes he'd prepared. "When I first came to Westbridge Community Center, I'm not going to lie, it was under duress." A ripple of knowing laughter moved through the audience. His reputation had preceded him. "I thought I was here to serve a sentence," Alex continued honestly. "Instead, I found a community that taught me what service really means." He gestured around the bright, welcoming room. "This space isn't just about books, though books are magical and transformative. It's about belonging. About having a place where you're valued for your mind, your imagination, your potential." As he spoke, Alex found himself making eye contact with children and parents in the audience, seeing their nods of recognition and understanding. "3 weeks ago, I couldn't have told you why spaces like this matter. Now I can't imagine a community without them." His voice grew more passionate. "Every child deserves a place where they can dream, where they can see possibilities beyond their current circumstances. Every family deserves support when they face challenges. Every senior deserves dignity and connection." He paused, searching for Maya in the crowd. Finding her face, seeing her encouraging smile, gave him the courage to continue. "I've learned more in my time here than in 4 years of business school. I've learned that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the strength of communities, in the way we show up for each other, in the opportunities we create together." Alex took a deep breath, making a decision in that moment that would change the course of his life. "That's why today I'm announcing the establishment of the Blackwood Community Investment Fund. This fund will provide sustainable support not just for this reading room, but for expanding the center's programs and securing its future in Westbridge permanently." A murmur of surprise moved through the crowd. Maya's expression shifted from pride to shock. "The details will be worked out in partnership with Director Johnson and the center's board," Alex continued, "but the initial commitment is $1 million, with additional matching funds for community donations." The room erupted in applause and exclamations. Children clapped without fully understanding why, feeding off the adults' excitement. Reporters scribbled frantically in their notebooks. Maya made her way to Alex's side, her expression a complex mix of emotions. "What did you just do?" she whispered as the applause continued. "The right thing," Alex replied simply. "We can talk details later, but I meant every word." The remainder of the event passed in a blur of congratulations, questions from reporters, and excited conversations about what the funding would mean for the center. Through it all, Alex was acutely aware of Maya watching him, her expression still stunned. When the last families finally departed and volunteers began cleaning up, Maya pulled Alex into her office and closed the door. "You can't just announce $1 million donation without discussing it with me first," she said, her voice tightly controlled. "That's not how partnerships work." "You're right," Alex acknowledged, immediately. "I should have talked to you first, but I only decided in the moment, standing there, seeing what this place means to people." "This isn't a game, Alex," Maya said, pacing the small office. "These people's lives aren't props for your redemption story." The accusation stung, but Alex recognized the fear behind her words. "That's not what this is about." "Isn't it?" Maya challenged. "The wealthy playboy makes good, rehabilitates his image with a generous donation, gets his name on a plaque, and moves on to the next distraction? Is that really what you think of me?" Alex asked quietly. "After these weeks working together?" Maya stopped pacing, her anger deflating slightly. "I don't know what to think. This is a lot. The money comes from my personal trust, not my father's company," Alex explained. "No strings, no corporate PR angle, and it's structured as a foundation with an endowment, not a one-time gift that could disappear." "Why?" Maya asked, searching his face. "Why now? Why this amount?" Alex hesitated, then decided on complete honesty. "Because for the first time in my life, I've found something that matters to me. Something I believe in." He took a step closer to her. "Someone I believe in." The implications of his words hung in the air between them. Maya's expression softened, though wariness remained in her eyes. I appreciate the gesture, Alex, I really do. But this center has survived on small grants and community support for decades. We don't need a white knight. I'm not trying to be one, Alex insisted. I'm trying to be a partner, to use the privilege I have to support work I believe in. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Isn't that what you've been challenging me to do? To see beyond myself? Maya was silent for a long moment, considering his words. The board will need to approve any donation of this size, she said finally, and I'll need to see the details of how this foundation would be structured. Of course, Alex agreed quickly. I have some initial ideas, but I want your input every step of the way. And this isn't about us? Maya asked, the question clearly difficult for her to voice. It's about the center, Alex assured her, about the kids and families who depend on it. He paused, then added softly, my feelings for you are separate from that. They're real, but they're not why I'm doing this. Maya's eyes widened slightly at his admission. Alex, you don't need to say anything, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. I know I came into your world with a lot of baggage and privilege and assumptions. I'm still figuring a lot of things out. We both are, Maya admitted, her voice gentler now. Alex took a chance, reaching for her hand. To his relief, she didn't pull away. Let me do this the right way, he said. Work with me to create something that honors what your father built, that serves this community for generations. Not as a grand gesture, but as a genuine commitment. Maya looked down at their joined hands, then back up to his face, searching for something. Whatever she saw must have reassured her, because she nodded slowly. Okay, she said, but we do this methodically, thoughtfully. No more surprise announcements. Deal, Alex agreed, a weight lifting from his shoulders. As they left the center that evening, the reading room cleaned and closed until Monday, Alex felt a sense of purpose he'd never experienced before. The path ahead wasn't clear, but for once in his life, the direction felt right. The news of Alex Blackwood's $1 million pledge to Westbridge Community Center spread rapidly. By Monday morning, local papers had run the story with headlines ranging from Blackwood heir finds purpose to the more cynical Playboy's latest PR move, community center donation. Alex's phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends, business associates, and family members, most expressing surprise, some offering congratulations, and a few questioning his sanity. His father had been uncharacteristically silent, which concerned Alex more than any potential criticism. Harrison Blackwood wasn't known for holding his tongue when displeased. Alex arrived at the center early, coffee in hand for Maya. She was already in her office, surrounded by paperwork and looking as though she hadn't slept much. Morning, he said cautiously, setting the coffee on her desk. How are you holding up? My email crashed twice from the volume, she replied, taking a grateful sip. Everyone, from the mayor's office to celebrity, philanthropists suddenly wants to partner with us. People who've ignored our grant applications for years are calling for meetings. I'm sorry about the chaos, Alex said, taking a seat across from her. But the attention could be leveraged for good, right? Maya's expression softened slightly. Yes, it could, if we're strategic about it. She pushed a folder toward him. I spent the weekend researching community foundation structures. If we're really doing this, I want it done right. Alex felt a surge of admiration for her thoroughness. I had my financial advisor draft some preliminary documents too. He pulled out his laptop. Maybe we can compare notes? They spent the morning deep in discussion about endowment structures, governance models, and community representation. Maya's knowledge of nonprofit management complemented Alex's financial expertise, and they found themselves building something more comprehensive than either had initially envisioned. This could actually work, Maya admitted, as they broke for lunch. If we structure it correctly, the foundation could support not just the center but collaborative initiatives throughout Westbridge. That's exactly what I was hoping, Alex said, pleased by her growing enthusiasm. Sustainable, community-directed investment. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp knock on the office door. Harrison Blackwood stood in the doorway, impeccably dressed and imposing as ever. Dad, Alex said, standing quickly. I wasn't expecting you. Clearly, Harrison replied, his gaze shifting to Maya. Ms. Johnson, I presume? Harrison Blackwood. Maya rose, extending her hand with remarkable composure. Mr. Blackwood, I've heard a lot about you. Likewise, Harrison said, his tone neutral, though I find myself at a disadvantage, as my son has apparently made significant decisions without consultation. Alex moved slightly, positioning himself between his father and Maya. My donation comes from my personal trust, Dad. I don't need board approval for that. $1 million is substantial, even for your trust, Harrison observed. May I speak with you privately? Maya gathered her papers. I'll give you two some space. Mr. Blackwood, it was a pleasure meeting you. Actually, Alex interjected, I'd prefer if Maya stayed. She's my partner in this foundation, and anything you have to say to me can be said in front of her. Harrison's eyebrows rose fractionally, the closest he came to showing surprise in professional settings. Very well. He closed the door and remained standing. The board has concerns about your announcement, particularly its timing in relation to our development plans. I thought those plans were under reconsideration, Alex challenged. They are. But public perception matters. Your donation creates the appearance of conflict within Blackwood leadership. Maybe because there is conflict, Alex said. I believe this center should remain exactly where it is, serving this community. You believe it should be demolished for luxury condos. Maya watched the exchange silently, her expression carefully neutral. Harrison sighed. This isn't about the merits of community programming, Alexander. It's about process, about consulting with family and the board before making public commitments that affect the company's interests. With all due respect, Mr. Blackwood, Maya interjected, her voice calm but firm. Alex's donation is personal, not corporate. The foundation he's establishing will be independent of Blackwood developments. Harrison turned his attention to Maya, assessing her with newfound interest. You seem quite comfortable speaking on matters of corporate governance, Ms. Johnson. I have a master's in nonprofit management, Maya replied without hesitation. And 5 years, experience navigating corporate partnerships. I understand the difference between personal philanthropy and corporate social responsibility. A flicker of respect crossed Harrison's face. I see. He turned back to Alex. Your mother would have appreciated your initiative, if not your execution. She always believed in direct community investment. The mention of his mother caught Alex off guard. Harrison rarely spoke of her. Mom would have loved the center, Alex said quietly. Everything it stands for. Something shifted in Harrison's expression, a softening so subtle most would miss it. Perhaps. He straightened his already impeccable tie. The board meeting is Thursday. I expect you to be there, prepared to discuss how your foundation plans align with company interests in Westbridge. I'll be there, Alex promised. Harrison nodded, then surprised both of them by adding, Ms. Johnson, your presence would also be valuable, if you're available. Maya glanced at Alex, then nodded. I'll make myself available, Mr. Blackwood. After Harrison departed, Alex released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That went better than expected. Your father is intense, Maya observed. That was him being conciliatory, Alex said with a wry smile. Inviting you to the board meeting is practically a peace offering, or a strategy to keep potential opposition in plain sight, Maya countered. Either way, we need to be prepared. Alex studied her thoughtfully. You handled him perfectly. Most people either cower or get defensive. I've dealt with powerful men my entire career, Maya said simply. The key is remembering they're just people beneath the power. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Alex and Maya worked late into each evening, developing a comprehensive proposal for the foundation and its relationship to both the community center and Westbridge neighborhood development. They were joined by Elaine and other center staff who contributed valuable insights about community needs. Even Dion and several other youth program participants provided input on what would matter most to the next generation of Westbridge residents. This is how planning should always work, Maya commented one evening as they reviewed the collaborative proposal, with actual community voices at the table. Not just wealthy people deciding what's best for everyone else? Alex asked with self-deprecating humor. Exactly, Maya agreed, then added more gently, though having some wealthy people at the table who actually listen can help too. On Wednesday night, the evening before the board meeting, Alex and Maya were the last ones working at the center. The proposal was finished, their presentation prepared. All that remained was getting the board's buy-in, or at least neutralizing their opposition. "I think we've done everything we can," Maya said, stretching her arms above her head to relieve the tension of hours hunched over her computer. "Except eat," Alex noted, realizing they'd worked straight through dinner time. "Pizza?" Maya glanced at her watch. "It's almost 11. Should we call it a night?" "One last review over food?" Alex suggested. "I'm too wired to sleep anyway." They ended up at the same family restaurant they'd visited before, though at this late hour they were the only customers. The owner insisted on serving them despite being about to close, remembering Maya's years of support for his son. "You know everyone's story," Alex observed as the owner returned to the kitchen. "Every family, every business." "That's my job," Maya said simply. "To know this community." "It's more than a job to you," Alex countered. "It's a calling." Maya considered this, her fingers tracing patterns on the worn tablecloth. "My father used to say that community work is like tending a garden. You have to know each plant, what it needs to thrive, how it connects to everything around it." He sounds like a wise man. He was, Maya agreed, a gentle sadness in her expression. "He would have liked you, I think. Despite your rough start." "Despite being a Blackwood, you mean," Alex said, only half joking. "Because you were willing to change," Maya corrected. Deb believed anyone could grow if given the right environment and honest feedback. Their food arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. As they ate, Alex found himself studying Maya's face in the restaurant's soft lighting. The determination in her eyes, the compassion in her smile, the subtle strength in her features. "What?" she asked, noticing his gaze. "I'm just thinking about how differently I see everything now," Alex admitted. "Westbridge, the center, my father's company, myself." "And what do you see?" Maya asked quietly. "Potential," Alex said after a moment. "Not just for profit or prestige, but for meaningful impact. For relationships that matter." He hesitated, then added, "For a life that I can be proud of." Something in Maya's expression softened. "That's a good vision to have." "I couldn't see it before you," Alex said, the words emerging before he could consider their weight. "Before the center." Maya didn't respond immediately, and Alex worried he'd overstepped. But then she reached across the table, briefly touching his hand. "I'm glad you missed that first day," she said with a small smile. "Even if it was deliberate." "Best mistake I ever made," Alex replied, relieved at the lightening mood. They lingered over dinner, their conversation shifting from the foundation to personal hopes and experiences. Alex found himself sharing childhood memories, both painful and precious, that he'd never voiced to anyone. Maya spoke of her dreams for Westbridge's future, her vision extending far beyond the community center's walls. By the time they left the restaurant, something had shifted between them, a deepening of trust, of mutual understanding. They walked slowly back to the center where their cars were parked, neither rushing to end the evening. "Big day tomorrow," Maya said as they reached her car. "Nervous?" "Terrified," Alex admitted. "But for the right reasons this time." Maya studied him in the soft glow of the streetlight. "You've changed, Alex Blackwood. For the better, I hope." "Definitely, for the better." She hesitated, then added softly, "Thank you for caring about what happens here. It matters." Before Alex could respond, Maya leaned forward and kissed his cheek. A brief, gentle gesture that somehow felt more significant than any passionate embrace he'd experienced before. "Good night, Alex," she said, stepping back. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Good night," he managed, touching his cheek as she drove away. The Blackwood Development's boardroom was imposing by design, all dark wood, leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Most of the board members were already seated when Alex arrived with Maya. Her calm professionalism betrayed no hint of intimidation, though Alex knew she must feel the weight of the environment. Harrison nodded to them from the head of the table. "Alexander. Ms. Johnson. Please join us." As they took their seats, Alex noticed several board members eyeing Maya with curiosity. She was clearly not what they had expected. Poised, professional, and radiating quiet confidence, despite being surrounded by people whose collective net worth exceeded the GDP of small nations. "Before we begin formal proceedings," Harrison announced, I've asked my son and Ms. Johnson to present their proposal for Westbridge. As you know, Alexander has committed personal funds to establish a community foundation, and the board should understand how this initiative might impact our development plans. Alex stood, moving to the front of the room with Maya beside him. As they presented their vision, a collaborative approach that would preserve the community center while allowing for thoughtful, inclusive development of other Blackwood properties in the area, Alex found his nervousness fading. The weeks of work, of learning, of listening to community voices, had prepared him better than any business school education. Maya handled her portion with graceful authority, presenting community needs and opportunities with data-driven precision, while never losing the human element that made her work so powerful. Several board members who had begun with skeptical expressions were now leaning forward with interest. In conclusion, Alex said as they neared the end of their presentation, "We believe this approach creates sustainable value for all stakeholders, community residents, Blackwood developments, and the city as a whole. It's not charity. It's smart, forward-thinking business that happens to serve a social purpose as well." "And the foundation's independence?" asked Eleanor Winters, the board member who had previously commented on his mother. "Essential," Maya answered confidently. "The foundation must be community-governed with appropriate professional oversight. Alex would serve on the board, creating a bridge to Blackwood developments, but decisions would require diverse community representation." "Ambitious," commented another board member, "but potentially game-changing for our corporate image." "It's not about image," Alex said firmly. "It's about substance, about creating real value beyond quarterly returns." Harrison had remained silent throughout the presentation, his expression unreadable. Now he stood, commanding the room's attention. "Thank you, Alexander, Ms. Johnson. Would you mind stepping out briefly while the board discusses?" In the hallway outside, Alex paced nervously while Maya leaned against the wall, watching him with a hint of amusement. "You're going to wear out those expensive shoes," she observed. "Small price to pay," he replied, stopping to face her. "You were amazing in there." "So were you," she said sincerely. "No matter what they decide, I'm proud of what we've created." "Me too," Alex realized. "Even if my father shuts it down completely, we've built something worthwhile." Maya studied him thoughtfully. "I don't think he will. There was something in his expression when you were speaking. Pride, maybe." Before Alex could respond, the boardroom door opened. Harrison stood in the doorway. "We're ready for you," he said simply. Back in their seats, Alex and Maya waited as Harrison returned to the head of the table. The tension in the room was palpable. "The board has considered your proposal," Harrison began formally. "While innovative, it represents a significant departure from our established development approach." Alex felt his heart sink, preparing for rejection. "However," Harrison continued, "we recognize the potential value in piloting a new model. Therefore, the board has voted to approve a modified version of your proposal." Alex and Maya exchanged surprised glances. "The modification is this," Harrison explained. "Rather than proceeding independently, your foundation will be established as a public benefit corporation affiliated with Blackwood Developments. The company will match your personal commitment, Alexander, bringing the initial endowment to $2 million. Murmurs of approval rippled through the board members. "The community center property will remain intact," Harrison continued, "and surrounding development will proceed according to the inclusive model you've proposed. Ms. Johnson will be offered a position as executive director of the foundation, reporting to a board comprised of community representatives, Blackwood executives, and independent advisors." Maya's expression remained professional, but Alex could see the shock and cautious hope in her eyes. "Additionally," Harrison said, his gaze now fixed directly on Alex, "this initiative will require dedicated leadership from within the company. Therefore, the board proposes creating a new division, Blackwood Community Investments, to be headed by you, Alexander, should you accept the responsibility." The offer stunned Alex into momentary silence. His father was offering him a legitimate leadership role, not a token position, but meaningful work aligned with values he had only recently discovered in himself. "This represents a substantial commitment from the company," Harrison concluded. "It will require rigorous metrics, transparent reporting, and clear demonstration of both social and financial returns. Are you prepared for that level of accountability? Alex found his voice. Yes, absolutely. Ms. Johnson? Harrison turned to Maya. The executive director position would require you to step back from day-to-day management of the community center, focusing instead on strategic direction of the foundation. Is that of interest? Maya took a moment before responding. I would need to ensure the center's continuity, but yes, I believe I could serve the community more effectively in that role. Excellent, Harrison said with a nod that almost resembled approval. Then, subject to final documentation and legal review, we have an agreement. The remainder of the meeting passed in a blur of details and formal votes. When it finally concluded, board members approached to congratulate them, several expressing genuine enthusiasm for the new direction. Eleanor Winters lingered after the others had departed. Catherine would be so proud, she told Alex quietly, referring to his mother. This is exactly the kind of bridge building she always hoped you would do. Harrison overheard the comment as he gathered his papers. She always said he had her heart and my head, he remarked. It appears she was right. When they were finally alone in the boardroom, Alex turned to Maya, still processing what had just happened. Did that just go better than our best-case scenario? I think it did, Maya said, sounding equally stunned. Your father is not what I expected. That makes two of us, Alex admitted. I've never seen him pivot a business strategy that dramatically. Maya smiled. Maybe you're more persuasive than you realize. Or maybe he's been waiting for me to care about something enough to fight for it, Alex suggested, the insight surprising even himself. They left the Blackwood building together, stepping into the bright afternoon sunlight. The city seemed different somehow, full of possibilities that Alex had never noticed before. Lunch to celebrate? He suggested. Or is that too presumptuous given that I just got you essentially promoted? Maya laughed, the sound light and genuine. Not presumptuous. I am starving. She hesitated, then added more seriously. But Alex, we should talk about us. This changes the dynamic. Professional boundaries, Alex nodded. I understand. No, Maya corrected gently. Not boundaries. Integration. If we're going to work together, build something together and… She paused, meeting his eyes directly. Potentially be together, we need to be intentional about it. Alex felt a surge of hope at her words. You're saying there could be an us? I'm saying I care about you, Maya admitted. More than I expected to, but I also care about this work, this community. I need both to have integrity. They can, Alex said with conviction. We can figure it out together. He reached for her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. One step at a time. Maya's fingers intertwined with his. One step at a time, she agreed. 6 months later, the transformation was visible throughout Westbridge. The community center had expanded its programs, now occupying the entire building that Blackwood Developments had renovated, rather than demolished. Adjacent properties were being developed as mixed-income housing, with ground-floor spaces for local businesses, designed with extensive community input. The Blackwood Community Foundation, with Maya at the helm, had already funded 20 neighborhood initiatives ranging from youth entrepreneurship to senior health services. Each project strengthened the fabric of Westbridge while creating measurable social and economic returns. Alex had thrown himself into his new role with unexpected passion, discovering talents for negotiation, collaboration, and creative problem-solving that had previously lain dormant. His office at Blackwood Tower now featured photos of community events alongside business awards, and his calendar balanced board meetings with neighborhood forums. Most surprisingly, his relationship with his father had evolved from tense obligation to cautious respect. They still disagreed often, but now those disagreements felt productive rather than personal. Harrison had even begun joining Alex for occasional visits to community project sites, though he maintained his characteristically reserved demeanor. Your quarterly impact report is impressive, Harrison commented one evening as they reviewed the division's performance. The housing initiative is exceeding projections. The community-based design approach made the difference, Alex explained. When people have genuine input, they become partners rather than just beneficiaries. Harrison nodded thoughtfully. Your mother used to say something similar about philanthropy, that it should be participatory, not paternalistic. She was right, Alex said simply. Harrison studied his son for a moment. You've found your place, haven't you? The question contained layers of meaning that wouldn't have been accessible to Alex months ago. Now he understood what his father was really asking, about purpose, fulfillment, legacy. I have, Alex confirmed, though not where either of us expected. A rare smile touched Harrison's features. Life rarely follows our expectations. That's what makes it interesting. On a warm Saturday morning, Alex arrived at the community center for the opening of its newest addition, a rooftop garden and educational space created through the foundation's first major grant. The area had been transformed from neglected mechanical space to a vibrant green oasis, where children could learn about sustainable agriculture and healthy eating. Maya was already there, directing volunteers and checking final details. She spotted him and smiled, the sight still causing a flutter in his chest, even after months of dating. "What do you think?" she asked, as he joined her beside a row of vegetable planters where children were eagerly planting seedlings. "It's incredible," Alex said honestly, taking in the space humming with activity and possibility. "Even better than the renderings." "The kids designed most of it," Maya explained, gesturing to where Dion was teaching younger children how to test soil pH. "They're already planning a farmer's market for the fall harvest." Alex slipped his arm around her waist, drawing her closer. "You've created something amazing here." "We have," Maya corrected gently, "all of us together." Looking around at the diverse group gathered on the rooftop, children and seniors, volunteers and staff, community members and corporate partners, Alex felt a profound sense of belonging he'd never experienced in exclusive clubs or luxury resorts. "I was thinking," he said casually, though his heart was racing, "that this garden could be a great venue for special events, celebrations, maybe even a wedding someday." Maya turned to face him, eyebrows raised. "Is that a proposal, Blackwood?" "A pre-proposal suggestion," Alex clarified with a smile. "Testing the soil pH, so to speak?" Maya laughed, the sound carrying across the rooftop. "Well, the conditions seem favorable, but there's no rush. We're building something sustainable, remember?" "I remember," Alex said, pulling her close. "And I'm in this for the long haul." As the morning sun warmed the garden around them, Alex reflected on the journey that had brought him here, from entitled heir to committed community partner, from empty privilege to purposeful engagement. The transformation hadn't always been easy, but standing beside Maya, watching their shared vision take root, he knew with absolute certainty that he had finally found his way home. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.